Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Scott Howell.
Hello, good neighbors, and welcome to the Good Neighbor Podcast, brought to you by the Friends and Neighbors Group of Cleveland and the Greater Chattanooga area. My name is Scott Howell, and I'm your host. For you first-time listeners out there, the purpose of the Good Neighbor Podcast is to bring awareness to the residents of our communities of the locally owned and or operated businesses in Cleveland, Chattanooga, and the surrounding areas. Small local businesses are the backbone of our communities, and they need our support. And joining me today is our good neighbor, Heidi Rau of the RE/MAX Ambassadors. Thanks for being our special guest today, Heidi.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Our pleasure. You know, when we do a podcast like this, the whole purpose, of course, is to learn more about your business and yourself as well. But before we jump straight into the business portion of it, I always like to ask, would you like to share anything about yourself and your family?
Well, I am a solo mama. I've got 3 children, and I've got a mother who also lives with us kind of part-time. We lost my father unexpectedly last year, so there's been a lot of life changes that have happened recently. But we live out in Harrison near the state park, and I've been a resident of the Greater Chattanooga area since about 1995-ish. So I'm very, very familiar with all the different pockets that we've got going on around here.
Okay, I'm very sorry for the loss of your father. I know that's a hard lick in life. That happened to me at a very early age. So I really apologize to you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hopefully your mother's is doing as well as possible.
Thank you.
Well, let's just go ahead and jump into the business portion of it then and talk to us about, RE/MAX Ambassadors. I understand you're the broker and the owner. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. RE/MAX Ambassadors. We're located on Little W Parkway, kind of in Collegedale, Ooltewah area, if you're familiar with that section. We opened in 2022, about September of 2022. And we're a smaller firm, but we're really selective in who we bring into the office. So for that reason, we kind of have a cap out at how many agents we're really willing to take on. Okay.
Now, when you say you're selective, tell us a little bit more about that. That might kind of pique our curiosity, the curiosity of our listeners.
Yeah, sure. So what I'm looking for when I'm interviewing agents is that they're going to fit our culture of the office and really our core values, and just a few key pieces of those. One being professionalism, first and foremost. I really look for agents that are going to be professional and that are going to be advocates for their clients. I do look for agents that are full-time agents. I want this to be the business that they are fully committed to, so that we know that they are committing to their education as a real estate agent so that they can service their clients' needs in the best manner. And drama-free is another one. I'm really big on time management and making sure that time is used effectively. So when I say drama-free, it doesn't just only mean like I prefer that the agents have that kind of mindset, like that they don't want to be involved in a bunch of drama either. But also there is quite a bit of drama that happens behind the scenes of real estate. And one of my biggest things when it comes to the client side of it is ensuring that the clients don't have to experience any of that. So there's a lot of things that we handle on our end that are very stressful, that keep us up at night sometimes. And that's not something that I want trickling over to the client experience. I really want for the client experience to be really smooth, fluid, and we kind of take on the burdens of all the crazy stuff that happens behind the scenes. Because as you probably know, the real estate industry is nothing like HGTV shows you. You get to go look at 3 houses and then you found your dream home, and you snap your fingers and then guess what? You've got your keys. That's not how it works. So I try to make sure that we keep the client experience looking like the HGTV experience as best as we can. But yeah, that's kind of what we're all about there.
Okay. That's very, very interesting concept, but at the same time, customer service is key. That's for sure. Uh,
Yes.
so tell me about your journey, about how you decided to get into the not only the business of real estate sales, but also to become a broker owner with Remax.
Yeah, so my journey with it actually started at UTC. I was in the College of Business there. I was on the dean's list. I worked a lot with the dean at the College of Business at UTC. And my final semester there, I had a lady in the business department that approached me and said, "Hey, we have a scholarship opportunity for it's a real estate scholarship." And I said, "Well, that's funny because I just went to this real estate career fair, and the last booth that I talked to was a real estate booth, and they asked me what my degree was in, and I said, well, it's business with a concentration in entrepreneurship. And they said, well, this would be perfect for you because this is what entrepreneurship's all about, is starting a business. So why don't you consider starting a business in real estate? So I ended up getting awarded that real estate scholarship, and I started working with Keller Williams Realty, first in East Brainerd, and then I transferred over to the downtown office. And then I had the opportunity to open up a Remax office. They had approached me in late 2021 about it. And then we kind of solidified that business relationship in early 2022 and then opened the office in September of 2022.
Okay, so September of 2022. So, and that's where you're located now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, that's you know, a lot of people that I've talked to that are in real estate, you know, they share with me a lot of times that people come to them with myths and misconceptions. You mentioned the HGTV experience. You know, a lot of people come with things, especially first time home buyers, with things, and they don't know what to expect. So, can you kind of help our listeners that might be in that position to dispel some of those myths and things?
Well, it's so funny that you should ask that question because we are actually in the middle of a whole lot of myths going on in the real estate industry. I don't know if you're aware of the NAR settlement that's been broadcasted all over the news stations, but everybody's talking about it. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So there's a lot of people that are confused about what's actually going on. I've had clients reach out to me. I've had appointments where they had these questions come up. So I can help actually clear some of those myths up for you. One of the myths that has been out on the news outlets recently that is misinformation, and I'm not really entirely sure who started this, and then everybody else kind of just ran with it. But one of the things they've discussed is that there's been a standard 6% commission, and that now you can negotiate commissions with real estate agents. So the myth is there's been a standard commission. There's never been a standard commission. Because we are in a competitive marketplace, we do see that if everybody kind of in your local market is charging an average of X, well, then you try to stay competitive with them, just like attorneys in different marketplaces do with their fees as well. When you're initially signing up, they kind of have an average of what you could expect. But I've seen commissions anywhere from 2% to 10%. And a lot of times those are dependent on what services that firm is offering. So real estate commissions have always technically been negotiable. Like when you're sitting down with an agent and they say, here's what I charge, you could say, well, I talked to this company and they said they'll charge me that. Will you charge me that? And sometimes agents might do that. And then sometimes other agents might say, well, let me put it to you this way, because this is a conversation I have a lot. I know what it costs to run my business, and I know what services that I offer, and I know what it costs to cover those services. So I charge this amount. Now, if I were to discount what I'm going to charge, and I say, yeah, sure, I'll come down to what that competitor over there is charging, even though I'm offering these other services, then if I'm not even willing to negotiate for the benefit of my pocket, then how am I going to negotiate for the benefit of yours when it comes to selling your house for top dollar? So that's kind of one of those things. But that is a myth that there's been a standard commission, because that's just not accurate. What has actually happened with the settlement is honestly more of a private portal thing and private portal issue. So we have something called an MLS portal where we enter all of our listings in so that it can go out to hundreds of different sites. That's the main source, and it gets syndicated out to hundreds of sites out there, like common ones like realtor.com, Zillow's are what people know most, but there's hundreds of others. And when we put it into an MLS portal, we have always been able to offer a co-op compensation to a buyer agent that comes. And that is what we as listing agents are willing to cut out of our commission to a buyer agent if they are willing to bring their buyer to our property. So part of the settlement right now is stating that we will no longer be able to disclose that amount in our private portal. So there's going to be some changes with how that will be disclosed. I'm anticipating that it will be disclosed publicly. So it'll probably be in the public listing. That way buyer agents and buyers know how much of their fee that they pay their buyer agent may be covered as a concession paid out by a listing agent, or if the seller is going to offer additional incentives. There are a couple of websites that I have been recommending to people just so they kind of get a better idea of what the facts are. So one of those is nar.realtor/thefacts. And then the other is if you just go to nar.realtor and go to their news and events tab, that's going to tell you a lot more about the settlement and what's going on with that. The other change in the settlement that has happened is buyer agents. We did have a problem with agents taking potential clients to properties without being under any kind of representation agreement. So the new settlement is discussing that they will be required to have a buyer agency agreement signed with a client prior to showing them properties, which I've always trained my agents to do anyway, because you should have already been doing that. So it's not a big change for those that have been doing that practice, but it is kind of a little bit of a challenge for those that haven't already been implementing that in their business. But you need to have an actual relationship with a client if you're going to be taking them out and showing them properties, and that's kind of liability. You're walking them through properties in somebody else's home. You need to have that relationship established.
Okay. Yeah, that a lot of technicalities that are going on there. Just in case that maybe some of the listeners, so they don't get the term NRA confused with anyone else, could you tell us who the NRA is concerning your industry?
So the NAR is the National Association of Realtors.
Okay, NAR. Okay, yes. I heard it wrong. Sorry. I thought you said NRA. It's like we don't need to get those two associations confused. Yeah. So, okay, the NAR is the National Association of Realtors. Okay, all right. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing all that. If anyone has heard that on the news, I'm sure they have a lot more clarity about what's going on now. So appreciate that a lot. With stepping outside the business a little bit, I laugh when I ask of anybody that's in the real estate business. I laugh up front because I tell people I have friends who are realtors, and I happen to know that a realtor is kind of like a mother. You know, your work is never done, right? I don't know that any realtor anywhere actually is never working. You know, because they always have a phone with them. They always are taking calls early morning, late in the evening. You know, but when those few moments in life when Heidi is not working, what do you do for fun, Heidi? Tell our listeners about Heidi's life.
Okay, so I have a few different things. I work in the film industry on the side, and it's just a fun kind of thing. There's not some extravagant pay from that. It's just, I work with an independent film company, and we do we call them found footage horror films. Okay, if you're familiar with like the Blair Witch Project and that sort of thing. So that's a lot of fun. And then me and my kids, we love the outdoors. We like getting out on the lake. Obviously, we're out here on Harrison Bay, so we've got some kayaks, and we like to get out in the water. We like hiking. There's a lot of opportunities for hiking out here. So that's kind of what my personal life looks like with that. Yeah, the few amount of time that I have to get those kinds of things done.
If you see Heidi out in a kayak on the water on her phone, don't think anything about it. Okay, she's mixing business and pleasure. I tell you, the Chattanooga area, Cleveland area, all this southeastern Tennessee is sure a beautiful place if you like water and hiking. That's for sure.
Yeah,
It's a very good place. getting just a little bit more personal. Can you describe any hardships or life challenges maybe that you have had and experienced, and now that you've rose above it, you can now say that you're stronger or better for it?
Okay. Well, there's probably some listeners out there that will relate to this. So I'll throw this out there for you and just say that, and I've actually kind of life coached some women on this sort of topic I'm about to kind of talk about. But if you've driven around and you've noticed some billboards that say, "I'm the face of domestic violence," okay, that those speak to me on a personal level. And I don't obviously want to get into a lot of detail about it. But there is a lot of challenges that come with that. And it is a very difficult situation for those women that experience it, and sometimes even men that experience it, to get out of, because it's very cyclic. But I do know that one of the greatest gifts that God gives us on this planet is our time. Okay. And that is something that we fully get to own. We 100% get to own our own time. We don't obviously 100% ever own, and this is coming from a realtor, and this is going to sound crazy, but you don't ever 100% own a home, right? I mean, you pay your mortgage off. You're not being held to somebody else's rent, but you still owe money to Uncle Sam every year, right? So that's just a little reminder that Uncle Sam actually owns everything else that we have here, including our cars and our money, everything. But time is something that we do 100% own. We get to make the decision on how we spend that. So what I coach women on, that I talk to on this sort of thing, is when you fully understand that the choice is yours and how you're going to experience your time, just get angry about anything that's wasting your time and is not serving you and is not something that's uplifting your spirit and that's not going to help you in the long run. So really take that and kind of run with it and get angry about anything that's a waste of time. I mean, you don't know how much time you have on this planet, right? So you should wake up every day always looking for ways to become a better version of yourself than you were yesterday, and just really assess your life and figure out what those things are that could help you elevate yourself to better levels. And when I really kind of grasped that concept myself, that's when I really began to grow. And now all of a sudden I'm looking in the mirror every morning and I'm like, hey, I'm a broker owner of a real estate business. Like, I never thought that would happen, but hey, here we are. So I think that just really taking all of that in, soaking it in, and knowing that there's a better future for yourself and you're the only one that can determine your own destiny is really the biggest thing.
When I'm listening to you say this, I'm thinking, I don't care if it's male or female. I'm very, always sorry to hear anyone who's during any kind of abuse at all. It's unnecessary. There's no reason for people to bully anyone else. There's never an excuse for that. But when I hear you talking about the time factor and owning that time, I guess I just never really thought about it in that same context. Like you're putting it out there, Yeah, you're right. When it comes to the taxes and all, there's a lot of things we find out we thought we owned, and maybe we really don't have the grasp on it like we thought, but we do own our time. There are opportunities to change things. Somebody might be listening and say, well, Heidi, now I'm employed by so-and-so. They tell me what time to be at work and what time I go home. So I don't really own my time, but that's something that you can change. If you can have that, you do have that opportunity to change that, so if you want to.
Yeah, that's still a choice. You're still getting to choose. You're still making the choice to work at that employer's office, right?
Right. Yeah.
I made the choice to work for myself and say, well, I'm going to determine what I do with my time. Yeah. That can be a good thing and a bad thing for some people, because then you have to hold yourself accountable. But just opening it up to knowing that time is yours. And I mean, you don't know if you're granted tomorrow. I mean, I thank God every day I wake up. I'm 39 years old, and most people would say, well, that's silly. You've got a lot of life ahead of you, but you just never know. Right. And
That's
you
very
just
true.
you gotta take every day as a blessing and just know that there's so many things that you can do in that day to really elevate yourself, elevate others. I think that's a really big piece of what we need to do while we're here on this planet too. Just, try to look at every conversation as an opportunity that you have with people to, maybe if it's the only conversation they ever have with you is somebody you met at the park, but hoping that conversation was impactful in some way so that they walk away from that conversation being like, I am so glad I met him or her,
Yes, absolutely.
That was really cool that I got to meet them. I feel a little bit more blessed today that I had that conversation, and just kind of keeping that good going.
And thank you for sharing that with us, because I know you said you coach other ladies in difficult situations in their life. So thank you for sharing that, because there may be somebody out there listening that hasn't had anyone to talk to that may gain a lot of, insight out of what you just offered. Getting back to the business side of who Heidi Rau is, if there was one thing that you wish that our listeners could know about yourself and RE/MAX ambassadors, one thing that they might not know that you wish that you could get across to them, shout it from the rooftop, so to speak, what would that be?
I guess I would kind of circle back to what we talked about in the beginning, just that we are a smaller firm. I know there's a lot of firms out there that have hundreds of agents, but just know that when you are working with our firm, I am very selective in who I bring in. I really hold my agents to a high level of professionalism. I want to make sure that any clients that we service are getting the best experience. That is what we want to be known as in the Greater Chattanooga area is, hey, if you want to work with an agent where you're going to have an excellent client experience with a knowledgeable agent, then that's who you're going to call.
All right. Well, one thing I am sure that a lot of the listeners want to know is, how do I get in touch with Heidi Rau? How do I reach out to RE/MAX ambassadors? So share the different ways that they can do that, whether online or offline.
Yeah, if they want to visit our website is rem, as in remax.ax/ambassadors. You can also call us directly at the office at 423-654-7535. And if you want to find me online, of course, I'm on all the different social media platforms. If there's anything that I can do to help you in any part of your life, or, any real estate needs or personal needs that you just want to talk about, then you're welcome to reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can also visit my website at heidirau.remax.com.
All right. Well, if you have a difficulty finding her on the social media, just go to her website. I'm sure the links are there, or you can Google and her name, and all of them will probably pop up. But sounds like Heidi is available for anyone who has questions or needing more information, or even on the more personal side. I'm sure she can tell you where to go to if you're needing some help in some things you're facing in life due to what she discussed. I'm sure that she would be glad to point you in the right direction there. So, Heidi, it has been our pleasure knowing you today and getting to know you and your business a little better. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be with us on the Good Neighbor podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. It was great meeting you as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And to all the good neighbors out there in Cleveland and the Chattanooga area, after meeting Heidi and learning more about RE/MAX ambassadors, I know that she hopes you'll take a moment to consider all they have to offer and remember them when you need or want the services they provide. And before ending this episode, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy day as well to visit with us at the Good Neighbor podcast. Always remember to support the locally owned and or operated businesses in the Cleveland and the Greater Chattanooga area. This is Scott Howell with the Friends and Neighbors Group. Everyone go out and make this a remarkable day.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpcleveland.com. That's gnpcleveland.com, or call 423-380-1984.